Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. I hope you're all well who's listening. My name's Stephen, the host of Endless Celts, and I'm joined by two show regulars, Anthony and Francis. How are you both?
Yeah, all good, Stephen.
Very
All
good,
good.
mate. Very good. Glad to be back on. It feels like it's been a while. It's been one thing after another with the house at the minute. Started a new job as well, so it's been pretty mental. So yeah, can't wait to get back on and just talk about Celtic for a nice wee change.
Yeah, 100%. I think as we explained last week in the podcast, there's just so much going on in terms of everyone's working lives, and we've all been in the chat back and forth, who can make it, who can do this, and everything's at such short notice. But thankfully, we've got a new schedule for the new month and we're ready to go now. Basically, we went into this Aberdeen game at Pittodrie on the back of a 4-0 loss at home against Bayer Leverkusen, and we're all pretty downhearted. The next day, obviously, our podcast was released, and we got a wee bit of feedback from that and things from our regular show comments on YouTube and things like that. And one thing I took away, especially looking on the Twitter scope, Anthony, was people kind of worrying getting this Pittodrie game. Not necessarily if we're going to lose, but just dropping points in general. That seems to be the whole manner of things at Celtic at the minute, with the defensive issues, and as we'll touch upon later in the show, the goal we conceded from a set piece again. It's all suspect. But getting into this game, Anthony, at Pittodrie, were you a wee bit pessimistic of what the result could actually turn out to be?
I think regardless of how good or bad Aberdeen are playing at any given time, or how well or bad we're playing, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because going up to Pittodrie historically for Celtic has always been a very tough venue to go, regardless of previous form. And there's no getting away from it. Stephen, our previous form in the weeks leading up to the match hasn't been great, especially away from home. And obviously, there's been we could all discuss all sorts of reasons for that, but the end of the day, it's a results-driven business, and we had to go up there with the sole aim of not falling any further behind going into the international break, because it would just leave a massive cloud over the club for 2 weeks until we get back to domestic action after the game. So going up there, it was a sort of high noon with high stakes really, and although we'll discuss later on in the show that it was certainly not a classic. It was certainly not a performance for the ages. But at the end of the day, it's a much needed 2-1 victory away from home against Aberdeen, which, to sort of use a healthcare phrase, we've sort of stemmed the bleeding with the sort of poor form away from home in the last few weeks, and we've got the monkey off our back with getting that away win. So something tangible to build on after the international break.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. A classic it wasn't, but it was a must-win game. And already, Francis, we're in these type of scenarios as Celtic supporters where every game now is a must-win. And to be fair, every game Celtic must win, but even more so that kind of the start that Anthony alluded to this season, we've kind of fell further and further behind the league, and it was important to get that victory, which we did, and we won 2-1. But before we get into the game, Francis, just want to know your thoughts into it over the weekend. Were you be a bit nervous, pessimistic, like I said, Anthony?
Well, before I start, can I just say a massive congratulations to a guy that me and Ross know well who listens to the show, Peter McGarty, who got married at the weekend. So I know he'll be listening when this goes out. So congratulations once again, mate. But anyway, on the game, you were a wee bit worried just simply because of the form and stuff hadn't been great. Like, say, it goes back to, well, domestically in the league anyway, it goes back to, what was it, Valentine's Day or something away from home before we recorded a victory. So you've got that all that looming over you and stuff. But it was, like Anthony says, it wasn't a great performance, but it showed that we can win ugly. And I think that says more about it than a lot. It's everybody was saying Postecoglou needs to do this and needs to do that. He can't win ugly. He can't do this, and he just showed that he can win ugly. I don't think you never intentionally. I don't know if you don't obviously set out intentions to play a game out in that manner and stuff, but I think it will give Postecoglou some confidence. It will give the players confidence, hopefully, that they see that they can dig in and they'll get the reward. So, yeah, well, as I say, it wasn't. I was looking forward to the game because you always look forward to a Celtic game, but at parts of the game it was getting worrying. But I think the manner of the victory, being an ugly win, could be a big telling point for us. And we've had moments in our recent history, like Dyla, Rodgers. We always seem to get a wee sort of a turning point up at Pretoria, a win sometimes when we need it, and it just seems to be a turning point. So fingers crossed this could be Postecoglou's wee turning point.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that later in the show about the likes of them former managers who games there. He kind of took the words out of my mouth there, Franny. But like you got Ronnie, that was the birth of the Ronnie Roar at Pretoria, wasn't it? Brendan Rodgers got a victory up there in one of the league campaigns, and actually so did Neil Lennon as well. You remember him over to celebrating with the fans. It was a crucial victory at that time, Anthony. But we'll take a wee look at the game itself. Now, we won 2-1. Kyogo for Hashi and Felipe Jota got the goals, and Lewis Ferguson got the goal for Aberdeen. But let's touch upon Celtic's performance first. Now, it wasn't a classic, and I remember at half time typing into the group chat that I did think we were awful, honestly, and I didn't see anything in regards to the attacking sense, the pressing. I just thought we were a bit laboured, but we managed to dog out the win. And as Francis says, Postecoglou showed we can win ugly, which is something I want us to keep and maintain, especially getting into Motherwell after the international break as well. But looking at the goals, Kyogo's goal, Anthony, and it was a kind of audacious finish, wasn't it? Like a chested finish. And what was your opinion of his impact in the game and his importance to the Celtic team?
Well, I think you even seen the impact he can have just when he came back on Thursday night. I mean, I know it's sort of fizzled out a little bit. He's obviously still not 100% fully recovered from his injury, but it's just that little bit of energy and buzz he caused by Leverkusen, those sorts of issues, all sorts of problems. On the match on Thursday night, and he did sort of tail off a little bit, and obviously the game had got away from us. But yesterday was much the same. He was always looking for the ball. He just gives you that little bit of energy that other opposition players just don't know what to do with him. They don't want. Did they come short? Did they hold up and fall? Which then can create the issues of him running at you. And he's so intelligent. His off the ball movement is frightening to watch at times. It really is. He's just. I've got everything crossed over this international break that he doesn't pick up any other injuries over in Japan. But the first goal was it was so symbolic of everything that he's done since he's came to the club. It's just that improvisation. Any other player would try and put that in with his head and potentially, hurt himself with his boot, or it would end up going too close to the keeper. He just coolly slots it home with his chest away from the keeper, giving him absolutely no chance. And after that, he sort of huffed and puffed, didn't quite get the final break of the ball. But yeah, I think just having him back in the team will be massive for us going forward, because, like you say, Stephen, after the international break, we've got a series of, there's a few tough away games coming up as well, but this really has to be the period in the season where we put together some sort of run that can sort of keep us, well within range or going into that second derby at Christmas time. We really, and that's what I was saying yesterday, we couldn't have afforded to go any further behind because that was what we were guilty of last season. October, November, the season just ran away from us. So yeah, yesterday was a massive result, and as I say, but it's only going to be a big result if we build upon it, and having Kyogo back, I think, will definitely help us in that respect.
Yeah, I think it's important, as you said, that this time last season, October, November, we were absolutely awful, and up until the game there against Aberdeen, I think we were on a run of 2 wins in 8 games, which again, obviously, is a shambles for a club like Celtic. And even though we're in obviously transition, Franny, you still expect to win these games. We should be strong enough, no matter what, to beat most teams in the SPL. But as Anthony said about Kyogo, his movement, and sometimes I think his movement takes our players out of the game because they're not expecting him to make them runs. But I want to give a shout out as well to the guy who assisted him for that goal, was David Turnbull, across on the right hand side. Franny, what did you think about Turnbull's performance? And apart from that, maybe nothing of note, but did you think without Rodgers, he had a wee bit more freedom? Because what it's looked like in the last couple of weeks is them two getting each other's way quite a lot.
Yeah, well, we've been saying it in the group chat as well. I don't think Rogic and Turnbull work well in the same team. It's kind of going back to last season, getting all the number 10s in the team and stuff. But for me, it has to be one or the other. And I think it showed the midfield, although Beaton I can't say that put a foot wrong. Well, up until Scott Brown won that hit, up until the goal for the Aberdeen goal, he was actually having a really good game. But after that, he seemed to sort of falter a wee bit and fade out of it. But I think him being in there and McGregor and Turnbull, it was a more balanced midfield for me. It looked a lot comfier. Rogic seemed Beaton seemed happier just sort of sitting in front of the defenders, which helped Starfelt and Carlton Vickers a wee bit. But I think, as like you said, Turnbull's cross, he's done well. Like, he's done really good to take the shot, the quick throw in, the nice wee quick 1-2, and it's an absolute great cross for the goal. You can't take anything away from him. And Turnbull has got that in his locker. He's just not really shown it enough this season, consistently enough. But for me, the midfield, I think that midfield suited Callum McGregor really well. He looked a lot comfortable with like a number 6 and a number 10 in there, I thought. So I think going forward, I think obviously McCarthy would be for everyone the ideal solution in where Beaton is, but cause I don't think it's Sorrow. But I think you need a Beaton or a McCarthy in there to help your Turnbull and your Rogic to perform better, because it gives them more freedom going forward and stuff, and to kind of play where they find themselves without worrying what's behind them.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought Beaton up and talk about the midfield for a second. Hopefully, Beaton comes in again. To many people's probably surprised. Got the likes of Sorrow, James McCarthy coming back from injury. Maybe time to give him minutes, but he put his trust in Beaton in there, and I think Francis makes an excellent point. Callum McGregor seemed better suited to the number 8 role in terms of a box-to-box midfielder, and we've seen him in the box for attacking situations, which I think we've been missing out on, because McGregor, for me, adds an awful lot closer to the goal that we're shooting in. Now, touching upon Beaton, Anthony, I was texting Ryan last night, another member of the podcast group who does the rewinds with myself, and I said to him, our best midfield at the moment, probably not on paper, but in terms of fitness-wise, would be Beaton, Callum McGregor, and Turnbull. On that performance in Pittodrie, especially for Beaton, it's hard to disagree with that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've been so used to seeing Near Beaton out of position at centre half over the years. We actually forget he was actually bought as a midfield player, so he was actually playing in a far more natural position. And yeah, like you say, I thought he had a good game yesterday. I agree with Francis, although he did allow himself to fall foul to some of Bruni's sort of antics, shall we say, which surprised me, because I thought if there's different, perhaps if it was a player who wasn't used to training with Scott Brown all those years. But yeah, Bruni sucked him in good and proper a couple of times. But overall, I think certainly in that position, I think he is more disciplined than Sorrow. I can't remember. I think was it Gary Neville that once described David Luiz as a PlayStation sort of player. Sorrow reminds me of that as well. I don't think Sorrow has got any on-field positional discipline, and he's really, for me anyway, has flattered to deceive since his initial sort of little purple patch last year. I certainly would feel more comfortable, especially away from home, with a Beaton as you say, playing behind McGregor, because it allows McGregor to be that little bit more sort of creative. Because and we all know how wonderful a player going forward that Callum McGregor can be. He's probably been asked, sort of perhaps last season before, by Neil Lennon, and even before that under Brendan Rodgers, to sit back in a little bit to allow the likes of your Armstrongs or your Ryan Christies to get forward. But as we can all remember, I mean, that Invincible season, when he was he'd sort of broken and really established himself in the team. He was a revelation up front, sort of further up the pitch, and then in the double treble winning year as well, he was absolutely magnificent. So hopefully we'll see more of from Callum, if and that may allow Beaton to be a little bit more of a frequent in the team.
Yeah, I mean, coming to yourself, Franny, would you keep Beaton in? Would you keep the midfield the same for the upcoming games, all being injuries and international duty?
Yeah, I think you have to, going on what we've seen yesterday. As I say, I think the idea would be for McCarthy to go there, but I can't see any reason why Beaton should be out the team. But I felt actually slating the guy after I'm having a decent performance. I'm hoping you just get by with him till January. Maybe I think Beaton's performance might show that we actually need somebody in there, like a sort of a defensive central midfielder. But yeah, as going forward in the next up and coming games, I think you've got to play Beaton in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Beaton is everyone's weapon boy, isn't it? And on this podcast, we haven't been shy in calling Beaton out. I personally think if we signed the right players and got Postecoglou's players in, the Beaton won't be around much longer. That should have been a year, maybe 2 years ago. But he's that utility player that kind of gets called upon when we're in desperate need, and that seems to be every season, especially at the start. But Aberdeen and the goal that we conceded, Francis, I'll come to yourself first here. Now, there was times in the match, obviously, they were threatening, especially the set-piece scenarios. Bernie got a header. Joe Hart made a good save. The big lad up front, Christian Ramirez, caused a lot of problems as well. I actually thought he was quite good. Maybe a bit more pace, he would be excellent. But coming to the goal, we conceded, Lewis Ferguson, who I had a chat with the Ross in the last podcast with, I believe, and I said I thought he was a good addition to the Celtic team, regardless of any connection he has with Rangers or family members, that type of thing. I just think he had something, and he did the set pieces, which I talked about previously, and he scored from it, albeit he hit off his shoulder. And one thing that's bugging me about the goal, Francis, why did Joe Hart not just clear out Montgomery and get that ball away?
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, is it? But before I start, I think it's 10 of the best headers on the ball and the penalty area, and we still wouldn't score. We are horrendous at set pieces, let's be honest. So I would take nothing away from Lewis Ferguson scoring and putting him in the Celtic team and thinking he's got to score for set pieces. Every team in the world's better at set pieces than Celtic. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think Joe Hart's probably looked at that and then said, I really should have cleaned out my player. And then it seemed with Montgomery, like Montgomery, you argue, why is we not got anybody in the post? And we had somebody in the post, and I think what's done Montgomery is he's jumped forward as opposed to straight up. It looks like he's actually ducked out he's obviously jumped, but it looks like he's ducked. But I think it's just the way he's jumped forward, and Hart obviously thinks he's going to get it, as you can see. But I think next time that happens, Montgomery's got to be getting wiped out anyway. So it was just one of the, not a freak goal, but it was one where Joe Hart thought the defender had it covered, but in hindsight, obviously, he's probably looked at and goes, that is my ball every day of the week. I should have just been cleaning out everybody to get there, and unfortunately, he didn't. So it was just one of the ones, Stephen. Like, I mean, it was another set piece that Celtic seemed to concede from, but I think, yeah, Joe Hart probably looked at that and said, that's kind of my fault. I should have probably been cleaning everybody out to come and collect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a point there. Obviously, he's probably looked back in that clip and he's went, why haven't it just took his head off and took the ball as well? But again, as you said, maybe Montgomery's missed time to jump actually out of position from the post he was at and ended up in the 6-yard box. Coming to yourself, Anthony, in regards to the set piece goal and the Achilles heel that Celtic have with set pieces, as Francis said, we could have the best headers in the world in our team and probably still concede and not score from a set piece. It just seems to be Celtic's downfall in every type of game. And we conceded the trademark goal, into the box, bang, loops over the defender. And at that moment, you're fearing the worst of it, especially if you're the run we're on. You're kind of looking at the players hoping their heads don't drop, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our records at set pieces, like you say, in terms of defending them and in terms of trying to create a goal out of them is absolutely woeful, and it long precedes or predates even Neil Lennon's return. That this goes way back to, I would even say, beyond Brendan Rodgers' tenure as well. It is, so you're looking at a whole different range of players and sort of formations and setups and marking ideas, and it just seems to be time and time again that it's almost like they're scared of the ball when the ball's in the air, and it's like it can't be rocket science to just clear your lines or attack a ball and hope for the best. I mean, I remember, we can all remember the Martin O'Neill era. I mean, when you got a corner back those days, it felt like getting a penalty. It was just the sheer strength and sort of physical presence that the O'Neill team had was incredible. And to be fair, I can remember us also being pretty threatening for set pieces under Gordon Strachan as well, but it just seems ever since then our inability to defend set pieces properly is schoolboy stuff. And I don't think there's any getting away from it. As much as Montgomery was on the post, and he perhaps mistimed his header. That is a goalkeeping error all day long. It does not matter what you think may happen. Anything that looks like it may be falling in your area, and it's not even like he has to worry about giving away a penalty or anything like that, because there's no Aberdeen player near him. If it means the young Montgomery having to take a sore one, then so be it, because you've got to keep that ball out the net at all costs. I mean, like you say, it's hitting off guys' shoulders now and getting in the net. That is how appalling our sort of record is at defending set pieces, and it's something that's got to improve very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing I want to touch upon. Obviously, the back four yesterday was Ralston, Starfelt, Carter Vickers, and Montgomery. Now, albeit the two fullbacks are quite young and experienced, and Starfelt was brought in, Francis. And again, I'm not pigeonholing Starfelt here. I'm really not. I think he's starting to come on the game. He's starting to gain a bit of confidence. But when I seen Johnny Hayes out muscling, I'm just still a wee bit tiny concerned about Starfelt. What would you say about him at the minute?
I don't know. The jury's out. I mean, I thought he was coming on again, but the big boy Ramirez, I've not seen enough of Aberdeen. I don't know if he's been doing that with every defender, but he looked comfy as anything against Starfelt. He rolled him every opportunity he had. Starfelt for me just gets too tight all the time, and any striker worth his weight in salt just will roll him. You want him up there, but I just find it's like it must be a player. I feel like we're going to end up with this Barkas carry on with him, because we all said there must have been a player in Barkas considering his fee and etc. But like, he didn't play for the teams. Like, he didn't play in Russia at Ruben Kazan and stuff, Sweden and that. If there's not got something about it, but it doesn't look comfy in this sort of ball playing centre half. But I bet that could be down to guys like Montgomery and Ralston, who I don't want to slate because they are doing a decent enough job, but I feel like they're exposing the centre half too much and stuff. They're not really giving the options. I think Montgomery's better going further up the park. I don't actually suited to a sort of a left back type role. But yeah, for me, Starfelt, the jury's still out. Julian can't come back quick enough, and for me, I would put Welsh in next to Carter Vickers, but I can't remember if I said it on the group chat or not, but I just think Starfelt plays in front of Welsh now because he's Postecoglou's signing, and it'll not look good in the manager if one of your biggest signings of the summer is sitting on the bench and a youth player's taking it up. But it shouldn't go down to things like that. But we're no daft. This is how things work at times, and that because you're the big name signing, I feel like you'll play before an academy boy.
I mean, is it a case, Anthony, as Francis said, Julian comes back, Starfelt's on the bench, do you think?
It may well be, although it's funny that obviously we're using Julian's the sort of player that's still to come back. When Julian first arrived, also out with Edward, he's our record signing, 7 million, and I can remember being at a few games at the start of Julian's sort of tenure. Especially there was a League Cup tie at home to Dunfermline. I don't know if anyone that was there will remember that day, and he was horrific. I mean, it was up there with one of the worst centre half performances I've ever seen. And you are sort of sitting there worrying, this guy is not going to adjust. And obviously we had an Old Firm game coming up a few weeks after that match, and you were going into that match against Morelos, Kent, etc., and you think, I mean, this guy could have a real torrid time. I think it was ball and goalie's first year as well, so we were going in there fearing the worst, and then the player that we thought or hoped was in there started slowly but surely to come out. I think he sort of endeared himself to us that day by his absolute he bossed Morelos that full game and wound them up. He says, as long as I'm on this pitch, you ain't scoring. All that kind of chat, and we fed off that. But then again, just before October, going into the international break, he was absolutely bullied by Lyndon Dykes down at Almondvale, and it wasn't until after the autumn international break that he really started to find his feet. He obviously started scoring goals as well up the other end of the pitch, so he was a real hazard for defenders. As going forward from set pieces, as he was sort of defending his own 18-yard line, and that it was that period between the autumn and Christmas where he sort of really, he really cemented himself, and he'd cut out a lot of those silly errors. So I'm hopeful that Starfelt sort of follows that same path, because, yeah, like you say, he's sort of the kind of whipping boy at the minute, because he is involved in a lot of mistakes at the back, which is sort of sometimes overshadowing some of the good stuff that he does. I sit in the main stand at Parkhead, and it's right sort of on line with where the sort of back four will line up when they're sort of Celtic are further up the pitch in the first half, and you do see him talking to the young guys at the back, whether that be it was Welsh for a while or the young fullbacks. He's a very communicative centre half. He's always talking, but I don't know if it's maybe that case of perhaps just trying too hard or having too much responsibility at the time, given the sort of average age of our back four. But I'm hopeful that after the international break, that hopefully settles down a little bit, because he's needing a run of a few good performances, I think, just to settle him down, because I totally agree with you guys. His nerves look pretty short at the minute, and it just seems he's almost going through that phase that it was the young boy we got for Dundee, Jack Henry. He went through a phase like that where it was just you could tell that the head never went down. He was constantly trying, but he just always seemed to be involved in a mistake that led to a goal, and that can be fatal for defenders, especially at a club as big as ours. So hopefully after the international break, he'll sort of find his feet and he can sort of be more comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, and now the likes of Jack Henry are putting in man of the match performances in the Champions League against Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe.
Yeah, exactly.
Less said about that, the better, isn't it? And obviously, Starfelt, you say there, he talks a lot to the players. Maybe he's telling them, do not pass the ball to me. Don't pass the ball.
But I'm sure I've seen a stat that he was like, he's for ball playing centre halves, he was up there as in the top 5, I think, in Russia. It's just. I don't know the standard. I don't know, but.
Do you know what I mean? I can pass the ball to the goalkeeper and get 95% completion rate. But moving on to the last phase of the game, and as with that goal winning from Lewis Ferguson, most Celtic fans probably went, "Oh no, here we go again." And you're expecting the players' heads to drop, Anthony, but they didn't. A few changes was made. Tom Rodgers come on, and by all accounts, his movement has passed to Montgomery. Montgomery's cross ball into the box for Yada, right hand side, and he finished that really well. Thought that was a great team move involving them three, and it just shows you as well that our two number 10s, Turnbull and Rodgers, had a hand in both of the goals, albeit Rodgers came off the bench, which I think suits him better, that type of role as an impact player, even coming on for Turnbull maybe in future games. But coming that goal that Jota scored, Franny, I mean, Jota, for me, he's probably been, along with Kyogo, Abada, up until the last couple of weeks, he's kind of tailed off a bit, but he's been one of our best performers.
Oh, definitely. I keep telling myself, don't fall in love with a lone player. Don't fall in love with a lone player. Then Jota's came about him. The guy he just seems to get it. He's taking everything on his stride. He's a Celtic player for me in the fact that he's just a wee tricky winger, wants to get it down, wants to run at players, likes taking on it. He's got a wee trick in him. But then that goal is, it was great for Rogic. Just, we all know Rogic has got that in his locker. He doesn't need 60 minutes to get in a game. Rogic can just do that in an instance, and it was the first time in the second half that Montgomery kind of ran beyond, and I think anybody sort of ran beyond the Aberdeen sort of defence, sort of two banks of four that they kind of had, or the 4 and the 5, and like Montgomery just tried to made a run, a good run, but not a fantastic run. It was a fairly simple run, and Rockets played that great pass, and then it was a really good pass from Montgomery just in. But with George Michael at the back post, just he's doing everything for us now. I really like the guy. Then obviously he's cracked the bar earlier on as well. I would just honestly be sweetening up so much, and I would get that $6.5 million. If that's the reported fee, I would just be doing everything I can to get this boy signed up to now.
Yeah, I think he's cracking. There's a lot of people, Anthony, who say maybe tracking back along with Abada, that's kind of the weakness of the game. That's fair enough, but I personally think if Postecoglou gets his type of players in from back to the middle of the park, the up front, they won't need to kind of worry about tracking back because there'll be energy all over the pitch. And as Franny said, Jada comes along. He's probably a faster version of Patrick Roberts, to be honest, isn't he? He has all them skills and tricks and flicks, and he's got a couple of goals in his locker. And it's brilliant to see a Celtic winger taking players on. I was saying to McGranda, watching the games he's been involved in, he reminds me a lot of, remember when Aidan McGeady first burst onto the scene? Just fancy footwork, taking players on. The game against AC Milan when he absolutely roasted Maldini, that's what Jota was like against Frimpong the other night. He just took him apart every time he had him faced up one-on-one. But obviously the goal goes in, and we touched upon it at the start of the show. We had to dig out that win. It wasn't a classic game, but a win is a win at the end of the day. 3 points are on the board. What's your opinion of Jota so far in the Celtic top?
Yeah, I've been very impressed as well. And like Francis, if there's a spare 6 million kicking about, then I would be straight on the phone call to the hierarchy at Benfica and sort of said, what can we do to make this deal permanent? Not just because it would be a great bit of business for us, but I must admit he seems to have slotted right in. He seems to have had a sort of instant connection and rapport with the club and the fans. You seen the way he celebrated yesterday. It wasn't a sort of an individualistic sort of celebration. He sort of ran towards the fans, pointing to the badge, sort of full of emotion. He seems to just get where it's very similar. He's got a very similar sort of personality, I feel, to what Michael Lustig had. Just that sort of, he just got it instantly. And if he wants to stay, then I'm sure we would be more than happy to keep him. But I like you say, he's a tricky player. He's got all the skill in the world, but the type of goal that he scored yesterday requires that wee bit of bravery. Getting in, prepared to get hurt by the Aberdeen defenders and just slot it home. And he's given us an absolute massive 3 points that just makes the skies that wee bit clearer going into the international break. And hopefully now we can kick on and start putting a run of games together and sort of push on for the next part of the season.
Yeah, there seems to be a common theme in terms of the way Celtic are playing at the moment. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, especially on Twitter, Francis. And as Anthony said there, Jada gave us a 3 points, which we desperately needed in this international break. But one thing I do want to touch upon in the whole game in general, Celtic committed 27 fouls in that game. Now,
by the way, I seen a stat about this, and I actually think it was Anthony Haggart. I caught a bit of their Monday bulletin, and I'm sure it worked out a foul every 8 to 9 seconds.
Is that a concern, or do you think that's just a part of the way Postecoglou plays?
I put turning John Tomlinson. I don't know how you concede a foul every 8 to 9 seconds. I mean, I suppose you could say it's we're pressing high and try to win the ball back, and these things will happen because if you're pressing high, then generally be attacking players who aren't the best tacklers that are committing the fouls. But we never really pressed high yesterday, so as a wee bit concerning. Then obviously I've not really had a chance to sort of look into that to see where the fouls are conceding and stuff. But with our sort of defensive frailties at set pieces, that is a slight concern if you're conceding some of them in the sort of in our defensive area. But it was a strange start when you consider how much possession we had and how many fouls we managed to give away.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, did you see that, Anthony, going around the whole foul thing? I mean, 27 fouls, 9 seconds a foul. I mean, that's mental, isn't it?
I'll just sum it up very quickly, Stephen. Celtic did not commit 27 fouls yesterday. Bobby Madden deemed Celtic guilty of committing 27 fouls yesterday, which is just simply not the case. End of story.
Case closed then. We'll move swiftly on.
Case closed.
Imagine if John was here. Oofed.
Yeah,
Don't
I think that's why moving
that.
swiftly. I'm totally in agreement with Stephen there. Moving swiftly on.
To the full-time celebrations, and obviously clubs get mocked for going over the top and stuff, but for me this was a victory that we dug out, Franny, and the players deserved to celebrate with the fans, and it was good seeing them go up. That connection's there again, and for basically best part of the team, also no fans in the stadium, we couldn't celebrate with them, and it was great to see the players. And Postecoglou went up, and when the cameras panned to him, I thought he was going to give it all, the fist pump and the running.
Oh, I was close to it, I think.
What his celebration said to me, now before I say this, I have been frustrated with Postecoglou and not afraid to lie about that, to say that. I've said it in the previous podcast with Ross. I just think sometimes he needs to learn to adapt when situations aren't going well and kind of tweak the team a bit quicker than he usually does around about the 70-minute mark. But what his celebration looked like to me, it was like, keep your faith in me, keep calm. I'm going to see this through. It was it was full of emotion, but not showing it. Do you get what I mean?
I do. I think, like I touched on it, it might be his turning point, like how previous managers seem to have a wee moment at Aberdeen, a wee result that kind of turns a season round or endears them more to the Celtic fans. But I think as well, when you see some of the videos in that on the internet, it's the way the fans reacted to him. Now you were never expecting them to boo him, but I think the fact that the fans cheered and kept him singing, they seemed to get a wee bit louder when he came over. It showed that they've got, the majority of the fans have still got belief in the guy. So I think he'll obviously take a bit of confidence for that, like seeing them going, well, I know, trust me, I've got to know what I'm trying to do here. And I think obviously the way they celebrated with him will show that he'll be like, well, I know I've still got the majority of the fans, that's the main thing. And now, like you say, the way the team celebrated as well, like there's videos going about, you actually see Callum McGregor when they win and goal, he pretty much runs towards the Celtic fans as well. And there's obviously Kyogo's one where he just kind of celebrates himself. So I think it shows the way the team celebrated with the fans. Yeah, you can say it's early doors and it might have been over the top, but you sometimes maybe do the type of celebrations just to show the fans, keep the fans on side. And we know, like a lot of the players like your McGregors, Joe Harts and stuff, they've won things, they've won big trophies. They know that the performances, the results haven't been good enough, so they'll know how to keep the fans inside, the things you need to do to keep the fans saying no results like yesterday are massive in the context of things. So I think for everyone it was a big result, and obviously more importantly it's a big result for Postecoglou.
Yeah, I mean, you touch upon the videos doing the rounds on whatever social media platform you're on, Franny, and Anthony, there was a great one going about. The Celtic fans were singing "Today's the day we finally win away." I think as well, I mean, hats off to them going to them games and sing them songs, because Celtic supporters take the mick out of themselves as much as other people do.
Yeah,
and I think
glad you picked up on that. I think that's what the word it was, kind of laughing at ourselves, because I've seen a lot of folks saying, imagine it's embarrassing singing this, and I think it was actually a great part for the Celtic fans.
I think it just shows you, Anthony, doesn't it? The Celtic fans can see an issue, but I mean, we're the only fans in the world that could probably turn it around and have a laugh about it, aren't we?
Yeah, and Francis has just hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I'm just about old enough to remember throughout the sort of 9 in a row years of Rangers in the 90s, when, you know, we used to, the fans always used to sing, always look on the bright side of life. You know, we've always had that sort of self-deprecating, sort of twisted sense of humour. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. That song was born, I think, after our, you know, very first group stage win in the Champions League against Spartak Moscow. You know, so, but, you know, after about 7 or 8, you know, group stage campaigns, we finally got a win. And the following weekend, we were at home in the league, and I think 1-1-1 just sort of sang that the full game. That was pretty much the full sing song, and I think it's brilliant. Like you say, it's just that sort of, a bit self-deprecating, but, you know, a great bit of patter. And but yeah, the anyone that's been up to Pittodrie for an away game will tell you it's one of the best days you can have, because you've got it's a long journey most of the time on a minibus with the boys. All sorts of bevy is getting consumed before you go in, so you're already in good spirits. And if you can factor that in with a late winner and a massive game, everyone's going to be in good spirits. But Frank, you absolutely hit the nail on the head right at the start of this show when you said it was very reminiscent of the match in Ronnie Dyler's first season, when Van Dijk scored a sort of winner from a set piece, funnily enough, with a couple of minutes to go. And over that side, I think that, like you say, it was the first time Ronnie done the roar, and Postecoglou, completely different sort of outward emotion yesterday. It was very, very calm, but just the small movement of his clenched fist. I totally agree, Stephen. I think it was just that, the overwhelming majority of fans, although there might have been a few murmurings, have stuck by him, and I think it was just to sort of show his thanks for it, and sort of as if to say, let's fasten our seatbelts for the rest of the season. But yeah, it was a massive win, and I just hope now it's something we can build on.
100%. Obviously, after the game, we'll have to look into this international break, and key players again have been called up to their team squads. Kyogo's came back from injury, and he's straight into the Japan squad, Francis. And Callum McGregor he's an important player for Scotland, but you guys will know more about the Scotland situation than I will. I haven't really been keeping track on it in terms of my personal life, what I've been doing and things I've been doing and working things. But come to yourself, Francis, about the international break. Do you think the likes of Kyogo, Callum McGregor, the players who've been injured, Celtic should have the right and turn around and say, look, hold off a wee bit here, maybe next time? Or do you think that would be selfish and leave it up to the player?
That would be, to try and look at it from a neutral point of view, it would be selfish, Team, because I think obviously we're not professional, but you've got to say, out with Celtic, surely playing for your country is the biggest honour that any of us could ever achieve or want to achieve as a football player. So I think in that sense, you've got to say, well, these players will want to play for their country. Play for country. Guys like Callum McGregor will want to play, obviously, in these qualifiers and things. So, and over in Asia, like your teams like Japan, China, they always seem to they get well involved in their international football, and all the guys seem to always want to play, and they do the mileage. It's just accepted that's what they're doing. I don't would be naive to think that managers don't discuss with international managers or federations. I think there'll be conversations there saying, look, more so if it's friendlies, I would imagine. When it's actual competitive games, it's probably harder to try and have a wee word in, for argument's sake, have a wee word in Stevie Clark's ear and go, look, just play McGregor in one of the games or whatever. It's maybe easier to do that in friendlies than maybe competitive games. But I do believe the type of conversations, rightly or wrongly, do happen. But I can't. It's one of the things. If you're a big club, you're going to have internationalists. It's part and parcel. It's what happens there. If you're a team like Celtic, you're playing well. You tend to have internationalists in your team. So it's just one of the ones. You've got to kind of take it as a compliment for your team. If you're getting so many call-ups, you know you're doing something right. If a big part of your squad's getting called up, it's a risky take. And I thought Postecoglou's comment about who's saying if anybody gets injured, just didn't come back. I thought that was a nice wee comment on it. But it's just one of the ones that's, in simple terms, that you're at a big club. If you're doing well, you should take it as a compliment. Players are getting called up.
Yeah, it is part and parcel of football. Everyone gets that, Anthony. And Francis makes a great point there. A team like Celtic has majority internationals in the team, if not sometimes the whole starting 11 play for the respective countries. But I'm coming more so from the point, Anthony, of Callum McGregor's coming back from an injury. Kyogo's coming back from missing like 5 games on the spin. He's only played against Leverkusen and Aberdeen at Pittodrie. So do you not think maybe there's kind of scope there? Francis did mention it. A wee conversation in the ear of a federation to say, look, this player still come back from injury. Here's his training regime. Stick to it. The club for me should get say over that. I know the national teams have importance in regards to what Francis said. The biggest honour of your life, it has to be as a footballer. But coming back from injury, there must be a protocol there, Anthony, to kind of say, look, ease off a bit. And I know I've got the fixtures up here. Scotland are playing Israel in a World Cup qualifier, which is going to be an important game. It seems like they're always playing Israel. And then after that, Anthony, is the Faroe Islands against Scotland. Do you think it's likely that Callum McGregor will be involved in both them games?
I think there is a very good chance that he will be, and just given Kyogo's status over there as well, I would imagine that he's going to feature heavily in the Japan fixtures as well. Listen, I totally agree though. I mean, it's from a Celtic point of view, it isn't ideal because, I mean, you think of international, you think of football essentially. The clubs essentially, if you think of them as a massive company that have splashed out and spent millions on state-of-the-art equipment that they then pay huge sums of money to maintain as well as develop, and then every so often a sort of locum company or a travelling company get a loan of your machinery for a few days, and if they do anything to mess it up or anything happens whilst it's under their care, you're still liable for it when they return it to you. So I can understand why clubs get frustrated, and as a supporter myself, how many times did you used to hear? I mean, Kyogo's is a big example this year, but you remember Tom Rogic getting injured over in the sort of Oceanic games when he was a massive part. He missed a really important derby due to that. But as Francis says, the highest, the most important sort of festival of football on this planet is a World Cup, or on our sort of area would be a European Championships. Players' careers are short in general, but their international careers are, most of the time even shorter. So they will want to be involved. I can imagine Callum McGregor being the type of player he is. He'll be desperate to play against Israel to try and get us that 4-point cushion. Likewise, I mean, as Francis alluded to, especially the sort of further east you go, playing for your country isn't just an honour; it's almost like a spiritual duty. It's so important to them. So I can't imagine Kyogo saying he's international manager, or it's fine, I'll sit this one out. It's football players are desperate to play football. It's just one of those things, and I totally, as someone who's desperate for Celtic to get back up to the top of the league where we belong, I'll be, I'll have everything crossed for the next sort of 10 days that nobody pulls anything up. But it's just the thing is, international foot, that these qualifiers are the sort of pathway to the promised land of a World Cup, and you can't really criticise football players for wanting to do everything they possibly can to be involved in that.
Yeah, you should be a motivational speaker in the Scotland dressing room, Anthony.
Well, I'm going along with the family on Saturday night to Hampden. All 4 years are going, so I might not be doing much in a dressing room, Stephen, but I'll certainly be doing my best to cheer them on for the stands.
Good man.
I laughed at the comment where you said international careers are usually shorter than club careers. I seen a picture doing the rounds the other day of a guy. I think he was the president of a nation over in the CONCACAF, or the African nations kind of play, and he bribed his way into the national team. 52 years old, on the centre circle playing. It's just nuts what people can do when they have. Just to wrap up the show, it's been a great show so far. I just want to touch upon Scott Brown. Now, come to yourself, Anthony, first. I mean, seeing him in a red shirt, even before watching the pre-match build-up, what's that interview you done with Stephen Glass? And they both speak very well, to be fair. I think Stephen Glass, if he gets time, probably will do a great job there. But, I mean, it was weird for me seeing him in terms of being associated with Aberdeen. And when he came out of that tunnel, I turned around to the ground and said, oh no, here's Scott Brown. He just had that look again where he had with us in the tunnel. What was your feeling of him playing in the red shirt of Aberdeen?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as we say, it's a strange one. Most of our sort of adult lives we're used to seeing Scott Brown in the green and white of Celtic, and it was a strange sensation sort of seeing him as an opponent. But like you say, from the minute they got into the dressing room or left the dressing room and into the tunnel, the professional face was on, and that's what you get with Scott Brown. He's a model professional. He has been, I would say, pretty much since he joined Celtic, and he sort of screwed the nut, and he went on to become one of the most influential captains in our club's history, and one of the most decorated as well. I remember when he sort of signed. The news had broke that he was signing for Celtic back in sort of 2007. We actually played. It was actually Neil Lennon's final season as a player for Celtic, and the two of them came up against each other at Easter Road. And Scott Brown, who was weeks away from signing for Celtic, was getting right in Neil Lennon's face, winding up all the Celtic players. I think there's a famous quote where he says, him and Bobo Baldy went toe to toe at one point. And you're like, I always remember being in the pub that day, and a few fans weren't happy because they're going, he's going to be our teammate in a few weeks, or he's going to be one of us. And I just, that argument didn't wash with me at all, and I knew it was going to be the same yesterday. The minute Scott Brown gets his game face on, it doesn't matter how many years service he's had with you or how many trophies he's won. He's a professional football player, and he is paid now as an employee of Aberdeen, and he gave his all yesterday. I actually thought he had a very good game, and he had it not been for Joe Hart, would have scored against us. I'm not sure he would have done the Bruni celebration to us. I think he wouldn't have quite went that far, to be fair.
Oh, because you imagine.
I know. You almost couldn't have. You couldn't sort of blame him if he did, but I think he would probably have just had a cheeky grin and went back to the centre circle. But Scott Brown's a consummate professional, and I just thought I'm glad for him that he's still got it, and I just hope I'm sure he'll put in just as much of an effort, if not more, when he plays those from across the Clyde in a few weeks.
What about yourself, Francis, seeing Scott Brown in the red of Aberdeen? I mean, I think Anthony made a great point earlier in the show. He sucked near beaton in time and time again, especially a corner kicks them through hammer and tongue. But I agree with Anthony. When he's in that tunnel, no matter he's spent 12, 13 years with a club, 5 weeks with a club, it's going to be the same face you get, the same professional Scott Brown. And I have to agree, I did think he played a great game. And if he had scored that goal, it would have just been written in the stars, but thankfully he didn't. Joe Hart was there to make the save. But what was your feeling towards him in the game, Franny?
Well, I think Anthony summed up well, just saying he's a professional. He's paid by Aberdeen, and he was doing his job, and he done a really good job. And it's quite funny because I heard them obviously saying on the football that the last time he played against Celtic, obviously excluding yesterday, he actually scored in that Hibs game that Anthony was talking about. So he actually scored against us the last time he played. So it was, like you say, it was almost written in the stars that he was going to score against us. But yeah, it is weird seeing him there, but it did show the top professional that he is with the performance he put in. Yeah, he was doing a bit of the shithousery, I feel like, in that with Beaton and try to wind some boys up. But that's Scott Brown. I think that just shows the respect that he's got within the game. That we're not. He's done that against us. He's acted like Scott Brown, if you like, as stupid as that sounds, against us, and he's still got the respect of the Celtic fans. So I think obviously you've got the way he was as a captain for Celtic and how he conducted himself in the whole time that he was at Celtic. He's got credit in the bank, if you like, when he plays against us. So I don't think any normal, sane-minded Celtic fan could really have a bad word about him, especially after yesterday. It would have been nice for him to maybe have a wee moment with the Celtic fans. I don't know, maybe just out TV and stuff, if he maybe managed to get that before the game or after the game. But again, it possibly wouldn't have looked very professional if he managed to go over and sort of thank the fans, because obviously he's never had that moment. Maybe he'll get that when Aberdeen come to Celtic. But it was weird, but also in a weird way enjoyable, because it showed that he still has it. He still got a lot to offer a team like Aberdeen and stuff. And so it was funny being on the receiving end some of his carry on, if you like.
Yeah, and I mean, brings us nicely to the end of the show, and just one thing I want to touch upon is the Scotland games come up. We did say there against the Israel, the first one, and the Faroe Islands. Anthony, you're going to the Israel game, aren't you, with the whole family, as you said? What's the current state of play? What does Scotland need to do in its next 2 fixtures to stand a chance for qualifying?
Well, I think as much as we're all, forever optimistic, Scotland will not automatically qualify from this group. Stephen, Denmark are just too far in front, and it's not feasible that we're going to finish first in the group. So it's all about getting that second place, which then takes you through to the sort of playoff rounds. Unfortunately, we don't have the sort of luxury, as it were, of a sort of one-off the safety net game, that the playoff that got us through to the European Championships. But at the moment, we're a point ahead of Israel with the same number of games played, and on paper, shall we say, our run-in does look a little bit, in inverted commas, easier, because Israel and Austria, who are our 2 main rivals in the group, still have to play each other. Obviously, we've played Austria in the last round of fixtures and won. So a win against Israel on Saturday night would put us 4 clear of them. With them having I can't remember who they play on the Wednesday night. It may well be Denmark or Moldova, but with the greatest of respect to the Faroe Islands, you have to go over there and win. But Saturday night is absolutely vital, because if we finish in the second place groups, it puts us, I think, in the better sort of half of the draw for the potential playoff round, which would hopefully get us sort of in the World Cup via the back door. But it's all about getting there. It's been, France 98 was the last time we were at a World Cup, so it's long overdue. But the great news is that it's a 52,000 sellout on Saturday night. So the place will be it's a 5 o'clock kickoff as well, so a nice early evening fixture. I'm sure the place will be absolutely bouncing, and here's just hoping. As I say, it's our usual opponents, Israel. I mean, Scotland play Israel more times than Rangers are in court, it seems, these days. So I think hopefully a big win for Scotland would go down just a treat.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our Sky Sports news correspondent for Scotland. Thank you, Anthony. I mean, us guys at Endless Celts Podcast with Scotland all the best. And as you said, France 98, it'd be great to get another World Cup for Scotland. And who knows, we can take this podcast on the road. Only dreaming. But have you guys enjoyed this one?
To me.
Have you enjoyed this podcast?
Absolutely, mate. It's been great being back on. Like I said, it's been 3 weeks. It's a long time away for the show, but it's been good talking all things Celtic and Scotland. Absolutely.
What about yourself, Franny? Down in London, working hard?
Down in London. But it's been good. It's been good. It's always good to talk about a win, especially an away win. So, yeah, it's been fun, Stephen.
Yeah, 100%. And as we said, the listeners at the start of the show, we've got a set schedule for this month, so we'll be back regularly. And any updates, we'll let you know on the social media channels in regards to podcasts upcoming and when they go live and stuff on all the platforms like YouTube and Spotify and iTunes. So to everyone who's listening, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.